Hello and welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. This is your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. And my name is Dr. Benjamin Alter. I'm the host of this podcast.
My name is Dr. Susanna Alter. I'm the co-host of the podcast. And we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
And we also have a third being in the room today, our new little kitten whose name is Theo or Theodore. And he is playing at my feet right now. So if you hear something, if you hear a meow or a jingle or a jangle or something like that, that's what's going on down there. Or if you're watching and you see me look in my lap, it's probably because he jumped into my lap. And that brings us to the topic of today's episode, which is peace. And, you know, it's funny how that came to mind just to talk about the kitten, because we're going to talk about how peace is really available in every and all moments, pandemic or not. And, Theo, the new kitten, just came to my mind because our thoughts have been really occupied by him and playing with him and feeding with him and laughing with him and cuddling with him. And we haven't been thinking so much about the craziness of pandemic stuff, the craziness of viral infections and pathogens and shutdowns and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes, to be quite honest, sometimes I feel like I am irresponsible because I'm not watching the news enough, because I'm not being kept up to speed with what's going on, even though there's different opinions and philosophies of what really is going on. But the fact of the matter is, amidst all of this, there is absolutely always peace available. So we're going to talk about that. And the intention is to have Susanna and I a little bit more of a discussion, maybe than we generally do on a lot of these live episodes.
Cool.
So we'll see how it goes.
I'm excited.
So Susanna, I guess I've got to kind of start this off with a question to you. How do you experience peace in these crazy times? What's your strategy? Or when I say peace is available and you can seek peace and find peace and feel peace, how would you go about doing that, quote unquote?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's interesting because the first kind of automatic answer that comes to me is, I've been doing lots of things that I love still. I've been going out hiking and going out on my bike and skiing, and all those things bring me joy and bring me peace. Yeah. But really, the truth of the matter is that these activities, they clear my mind. And when my mind is clear, that's when I'm in touch with my innate peace that is always there.
Yeah, and really when you say that, I think about the other side of the equation that's a potential reality, maybe for more people in the current times, and that's to experience thinking about so much stuff and essentially a cluttered mind as a result of tuning into this story and that story and this conspiracy theory and that person's point of view and that what that doctor says and what that and the supplement that person says you should be taking. And it just ends up being a real thought storm, as we refer to. And not that any of these thoughts are good or bad or right or wrong. There's just a lot of mental activity for a lot of people in the current times.
Right. Yeah. And I think that bringing our little kitty cat example up is a really great example because, many times, Ben, when we're coaching people to kind of think back to a reference point when they had a clear mind and they were connected with their innate calm and innate peace will say something like, you know, maybe you were out walking in nature, maybe you were playing with a kitten, maybe you were holding a baby, maybe you were doing yoga or meditation or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, we always emphasize that it's not Theo, you know, it's not the kitten that's keeping us peaceful. It's not my walking that's keeping me peaceful. It's not the meditation even that's keeping someone peaceful, because peace is innately built into us and it is our default state. And really, you know, what some of these kind of external activities or animals or beings or relationships help us do is just get into that place where all of those cluttered thoughts about, oh, coronavirus or this or that or whatever are cleared, and we're just 100% present and connected with our innate well-being.
I think that the magic word is presence, because when we are watching the news, we're present with the news story, yes, but the news story is not about the present moment. It's about, you know, stories or perspectives or viewpoints on what's going on.
Yeah.
speaking of the present moment, I think he just took something out the door. Anyway, so yeah, it's for me, you know, it all boils down to presence, and it's like a lot of people focus on, all right, well, what can I do to be more present? You know, well, I could sit down on a meditation cushion. I could go for a hike. I could call a friend. I could, you know, drink a glass of wine. I could watch a movie. Like you could do anything. You could do anything. And that's why we really are advocates of not recommending or prescribing any sort of practice to be more present, but just reminding people that presence is built into them, and they don't need to go anywhere to find presence, but rather just have an understanding of what is essentially distracting them from being more present in the moment. And that really comes down to, you know, what we started with, which is just that cluttered thinking, that mental activity, which once again also is just a normal part of being human. There's not a single human who does not think. You know, your thinking is obviously a gift. You're able to do so much with those thoughts, but it comes to a point where it is counterproductive, and where it is, you know, this fine line of letting it go, you know, letting the thoughts go, letting the conceptual, the mental masturbation, as a lot of people talk about, just kind of thinking about things and solving the world's problems within our minds, and just letting it go. And, you know, I made a post on social media, something about, you know, it was just kind of a short little rant about worry versus trust. And, you know, I received a few comments on that post saying, oh, I need to work more on that. I need to practice trusting more. I need to worry less.
Well, yeah, and will you elaborate? Because it was a beautiful post, and you're really talking about how worrying doesn't lead to anything constructive or, you know, beneficial. Or will you just read it?
Yeah, maybe I can read it. I've never read a social media post on the podcast, but
I think that's a great idea.
If the internet works, I don't know why things are like kind of laggy on my computer right now. But it's funny because I read on the last episode of the podcast, I read, maybe as I pull this up, you can do something with Theo, who's like wrapping a present.
Yeah, he's wrapping a present with our wrapping paper, that's for sure. Oh, how beautiful.
So yeah, I made a post on social media. Oh, I was saying on the last week's episode, I read an essay by Charles Eisenstein. I thought it was Eisenstein, but I think it's Eisenstein. So I haven't heard his name pronounced, but he was the latest guest on the Rich Roll podcast, which you might know I'm a big fan of, and they had a great discussion. Anyways, I read this essay that he wrote that really resonated. So why don't I read just 2 paragraphs that I wrote, and and see if it resonates with you. And maybe, Susanna, you can share your thoughts and reflections.
Sounds good.
So,
and
Theo will continue wrapping a present as we be present. I'm not worried. It's not that I don't care, but actually the opposite. I care so deeply about my health and the health and well-being of humanity, and I know that any worry is only constrictive and fearful thinking that is effectively a negative prayer. There is nothing constructive that comes from worry. That being said, worry continues to be a habitual response for so many during uncertain times. I'd like to present an alternative path for you to consider walking down from this present moment forward. Trust. When we worry, it means that we don't trust. We don't trust ourselves, we don't trust others, or we don't trust the universe at large. Nevertheless, on the other side of all uncertainty, everything is always and forever okay. Maybe not the way we expected, hoped, or imagined, but okay nonetheless. And then it comes right down, and when it comes right down to it, you and I, from our small human-minded perspective, have no freaking idea of what is actually in the highest good for the entire world and all concerned. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, and on the other side of all adversity is always growth.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful post. And Ben has such a way with his words. I love it.
Oh, well, I think if anyone does, it's Charles Eisenstein.
Oh, well, you're a close second.
Okay, thanks.
Or it's a close competition. But really, reading that post, it does really resonate with me because, me, I am, I think if there are a lot of emotions that come into my feeling state from time to time, but I'd say one of them that is more frequent is worrying and anxiety.
I'm typically the one that's calming Susanna down as opposed to vice versa. Susanna is usually the one who's cheering me up.
Yeah.
And I'm usually calming her down.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, when the news reports started coming out about this stuff and all I was doing was watching it, I got sucked into the worrying because watching just the same kind of news over and over again, all it does is plant those seeds in the mind, all of those thoughts that, like you said in the post, they're constrictive. When we have these negative worrying thoughts, it creates actual constriction in the body and it feels uncomfortable. Anxiety or worry, it has a physical quality, a physical sensation that comes with it. And that's actually how you can know that you're in worried thinking. But
so
there is more I want to say about your post.
Then say it.
Okay, so on the second part of the post, when you start talking about trust, it automatically when you read those words, the constriction just kind of relaxes and opens up.
For you.
And for me, and I think for other people who read. But what this really brings up for me is just remembering the truth that when we fall back into trusting, what happens is that the mind does clear, and when we have a clear mind, we are able to be in touch with our innate wisdom, our innate creativity that helps us deal with whatever challenge we're faced with in life. And so, ever since I've stopped buying into the fearful thoughts that have been fed to me from the media, I've been spending more time in this relaxed state. Yeah. I know you really want to say something, but what comes from that is that I've been finding in the last 3 weeks or so, being in a more relaxed state, is that I'm just taking such good care of myself, and it's hard to do that when we're constantly worrying about things, right? And we know the physiological toll that anxiety takes on immunity and our entire system. So
So you said like four things that I wanted to talk
Sorry.
about, but and I'm gonna forget at least two of them. But the first thing that is most on top of the surface in my thinking is, you said we are fed fearful thoughts from the media, and I disagree. The media is designed to be dramatic and designed to be captivating, clickbait, to engage us, and it's up to us whether or not we think it's scary. And to be quite honest, my literal, like, habitual knee jerk response right now to the media is to kind of chuckle because it has become funny. So I don't think that the media or any other entity or creature or being has the capacity to feed us thoughts. I think that the thoughts that we have, that we receive, come from only ourselves. And I think that, like, we can watch a terror movie. We can watch, some crazy, dramatic terror movie, and there can be someone in the back of the theater laughing, and usually there is, and everyone else is like sweating and wants to run out. And we all have a different thinking about what's going on. And for me, like I said, for better or for worse, and I don't judge it or think it's a good or bad or right or wrong, but for me, my now response to generally what's going on is a little bit of a chuckle. And yeah, some people might say, oh, well, that's your way of coping with the intense situation. That's your way of, dealing with it, disregarding. That's irresponsible. You should think more seriously about what's going on. You should be worried. If you're not worried, then you don't care. And like, people can come up with all of their interpretation of how I think. But the fact of the matter is, like, I know, it doesn't matter. Like, my thoughts don't actually mean anything. So whether I am scared or worried or overwhelmed or anxious or excited or anything, it doesn't actually mean anything until I make it mean something, until I believe those thoughts. So I'm starting to believe more the lightness and the hope and the possibility. Because let's face it, when we watch the news, you might have the thought of like, oh my God, like we're all gonna die. We're all
Right.
gonna die.
That's, yeah.
And then there's probably also a sliver of a thought, like, maybe it's totally in the shadows of we're all gonna die, but there's probably a sliver of like wow, like, what is happening, like,
Hmm.
what is possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you brought up that distinction because it's true. The only thing causing my anxiety were my thoughts in response to watching the news. So, the news gives information, but I am the one who has a thought that says, oh my gosh, this is serious.
Right, yeah, it's
This
important.
is
That's
scary.
important, because the other thing that I think is really really important to bring up is, um you know this idea of trying to be more present. Like, there's a
Mm-hmm.
comment on the feed here. I've been trying to be more present, trying to be more present, trying to worry less, trying to trust more, trying to let go. Trying is really trying. And trying is a thought, right? When we try, it means that we're thinking.
It's efforting. It's
It's
forcing. It's
well,
but you need thoughts in order to try to do something.
yeah, trying means that I'm gonna think it, and then I'm gonna try to, like, do something with a forced, like, try to, like, a top down forceful approach to life. I'm gonna try. And we know, when we're talking, in, for example, lifestyle medicine and habit change, that top down trying approach, it might work for you for an hour or a day or a month or something, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good really ever, and it's certainly not sustainable.
Yeah, because you're trying, and whenever there's thoughts about, oh, I need to do something to be better, or I need to fix myself somehow and change this, there's also that element of constriction that we were talking about that, can also come in with the worry, but it might be a different flavor. But yeah, it doesn't feel good. It
So
doesn't
yeah,
feel
I
good.
think that it's important to address the alternative to trying, because I'm just really sensitive to a lot of people trying right now.
Hmm.
And I believe that there is an alternative to trying. I know that there is an alternative to trying. And the alternative is allowing, you know, rather than trying to force something to happen, allow yourself to feel good, allow yourself to feel present. And that just like talk about feeling like that comes with a different feeling when you hear that, when I say that. I feel different when I allow something. And really, what we're allowing is we're allowing our true self to be more heard, to be more realized. Because trying does not come from the true self. The true self doesn't try. Trying actually effectively suppresses the true self.
Yeah, the true self doesn't try because the true self sees that everything is perfect, that you are
Yeah.
innately perfect.
Yeah.
And
Put another way, trying is like your ego, and
mhm,
allowing is your authentic self, who you truly are. And
right.
and you are both. You can try and you can allow. And I think the invitation is just to allow who you truly are, what you truly know, to be heard, to be realized, and to act from there and live from there.
Mhm.
And that, you know, that is the opportunity. That is the opportunity when we feel disconnected, when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel whatever we feel that doesn't feel good. The opportunity is to allow our true self to emerge and to bubble up through and amidst the storm and the chaos and the craziness that might be in our physical world reality.
Mhm. Yeah, and the word that comes up for me is also surrendering. It's very similar to allowing, but with the word surrender comes this visual of just kind of just falling back into the universe and just being caught, like if you're doing a trust fall with the universe, right? You're just falling back and
Yeah.
allowing that everything that is considering that everything right now that's happening in the world is happening for a reason that we don't understand right now. And
Some of
to
us might have more understanding than others. Yeah.
yeah, but to allow, to surrender, to go with it, that is when the mind clears, and that's when the true self does bubble up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think it's also important to recognize that, we talk about how this innate peace and this true self, it emerges when the mind is in a clear state, and that it's really hard to try to clear your mind. It's really hard
It's
to
impossible.
it's impossible because in
It's
order to
impossible.
in order to clear your mind, you need to have thoughts about clearing the mind. So it just clouds
Which,
up your mind more.
yeah, my favorite metaphor for that is like, all right, there's waves on the ocean. Those waves are kind of your thought, mental activity. You can your brain waves, if you
Mhm.
will. And if you want a clear, you want a clear, calm ocean. You want a less waves. A lot of people go in and try to smooth out the surface of the ocean or a lake or a pond or a puddle or whatever, and they just
Create more
create
waves.
more waves. They create more activity.
Right.
But if we just like set it down and take a step away, look in a different direction, then we notice that those waves, they might not come to complete stillness, especially if it's an ocean and especially if there's a storm rolling in, but there's more fluidity. There's not the turbulence.
Right, exactly. Going back to that idea of trying to clear the mind, obviously doesn't work. But similarly, Ben, you've been hearing a lot of people say, "Oh, how do I do this? How do I do it?" And I've been trying to do it. And what I really want to emphasize is that, um, like, I would honestly just encourage you to not worry about trying to be more present, because it happens naturally. It happens. It
Yeah, yeah,
happens. It
yeah.
happens without you doing anything,
Right,
because it's simply who you are. You
right.
are presence. You are presence. You are loving awareness. You are peace. And even in the most, turbulent times in your mind, that pure awareness can just pierce through any thick cloud storm, or I
I
mean
yeah,
any thick thought storm,
like I
what we
said,
call it.
the allowing, like there's like just stop trying, just stop
Yeah.
trying.
Just stop trying and just enjoy life, really.
Yeah, and practically, all right. Like I know that most people listen to this podcast and most podcasts not to be told to just stop trying, but for like practical stuff. So ending with maybe like a practical thing, which when we're talking about this kind of stuff, we're a little adverse to practicality and more prone to more, like more providing some direction and that supports understanding sustainably, not just practicality. But
Yeah.
practically, yeah, change the channel.
Look in a different direction. And practically, this one's the biggest for me. Practically, if you notice that you feel anxious, you feel uncomfortable, you notice it in your stomach or your head, or maybe you just feel that subtle constriction in the body, that is biofeedback from your body that you are caught up in negative thinking, insecure thinking, worried thinking, whatever it is. And you don't have to. You don't have to take those thoughts seriously, because
Those thoughts are not who you are.
those thoughts aren't who you are, and there's no rule that says, "Oh, whatever thought comes through your mind you need to believe." You have the choice in any moment to take whatever thought seriously or not. And so what I do now when I feel uncomfortable and I'm caught up in thought is I'll just remind myself, like, okay, I feel uncomfortable. I must be caught up in thought. All right. I know it's going to pass. I know it's going to pass, just like
Yeah.
clouds pass through the
I
sky.
don't even like sharing like what goes on because it's so unique and different for everybody. And sometimes I do get totally 1 billion% caught up in the total shit show of my thoughts, and and then for a full on day, and that's all right too, because we know that just like everything, thoughts are impermanent. So whether or not you are caught up in your own shit show, it is okay, and everything is okay. And you don't need us to tell you that, but we're telling you that. So I want to wrap things up.
Sounds good.
So on that note, you guys, we just are sending you lots of love, hope, blessings, and quickly, I think, on the topic of hope, I do want to say that um, I feel really hopeful. I feel authentically, genuinely, truly hopeful, because there are more and more people who are simply waking up to their reality, that what is happening, what is going on, is such an incredible opportunity to change their own personal trajectory in life, and for life itself and culture itself and society at large to change dramatically the trajectory of what's going on. I think we all know that things will never be normal again, and that is a damn good thing, because normal sucked, and we really are in charge of what our individual and collective new normal is. So I just encourage everyone to tune into that opportunity and to be mindful and do your best to not be too reactive and responsive, and give yourself the gift of pause and stillness and quiet, or whatever this pandemic scenario is offering you, because it's really a once in a lifetime, quite literally, opportunity. So let's do it, you guys. Let's do this, humanity.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to say on hope. And we love you guys. We appreciate you for tuning in. If you would be so kind, hit the like or subscribe or leave a comment, review, share this message with someone who you know and love, someone who might resonate or be uplifted by it. This is not really a typical podcast episode, but I'm feeling like the podcast might be evolving as well. So we will see what that becomes. But on that note, yeah. Any last words from you, Dr. Susanna?
No.
Right.
Well, if you just want to join our wonderful Facebook community that continues to grow more and more and more, head over to the Plant-Based and Stress-Free Facebook group. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/alterhealth. That's where we're recording this episode right now, waving to the people who are live with us.
Yeah, thanks for being here, people live. And this is, of course, posted on YouTube and iTunes and all the podcast platforms and whatnot. So, but yeah, come on into the group. The invitation is open. Plant-based and stress-free. Find us on Facebook. And peace and love, you guys. Until next time.
Bye for now.